The Avalaunch transmission starts now.
All right. Mile, can you hear me okay? Looks like Mile is a bit frozen. Gotta wait for his signal to come back, it looks like. So just give us a second here um, while he finds his way back in. But we can go ahead and get started here. Here we go. That's
Hi.
better. Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Right on. Cool. Well, right on, man. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us on yet another Battle for Giostone live stream. We've been doing a lot of this stuff recently, but that's because there's a lot to cover, a lot of substance, and we want to make sure that that when people are looking at Battle for Geostone, they realize that there's many pieces to this that are, I think, and I think you would agree, like pushing GameFi and Web3 gaming forward, incorporating a lot of the lessons learned. And we want to make sure that those things are clear and well explained and people understand them. So we really appreciate your time and your team's time and coming on here and kind of talking through all this stuff with us. So it's good to see you, and thanks again. I know our community is going to certainly appreciate it when the time comes.
Yeah. Thank you. It's good to see you as well. And I think we're going have interesting chat here
Yeah,
tonight. And
for sure, for sure. I'm excited about this one, and with each of these, excuse me, with each of these talks, we've really tried to have a kind of a focus. So it's not just so general, but in each of them we're covering some pretty specific topics. And today, because of your history in MOBAs and you've been involved in this culture and genre for many years, doing being really active and putting on a lot of cool things. I thought it was a good idea to kind of talk about kind of the history of MOBAs over the last, let's just say, 10 years, and your involvement in them, and how you've seen them change, and how you expect them to continue to grow and to change with games like Battle for Geostone and other Web3 MOBAs. So just to kind of get things kicked off here, I think it makes sense to just introduce yourself. Who are you? What's your relationship to BFG, and maybe give us just a little bit of your background in general.
yeah, sure. So my name is Mile. I come from North Macedonia, and I live there as well. So my a little bit about my background. I studied software engineering, software development, and I started my own software development company when I was like 18, and since then I'm working with I also have worked a little bit with marketing as well, something like affiliate marketing, and
Hmm.
the other things was like software development. And in meantime, as a hobby, I always I was always organizing tournaments, and I'm actually the CEO and the founder of organization that is esports organization that is organizing esports events in Macedonia and in the Balkan region. So
Okay.
basically, we have hosted many esports tournaments in these past years, and
Hmm.
everything we did was not for profit. And because when we started doing those tournaments and those events, esports was not even a thing. So whatever we were doing, we did from our own money. We did
Hmm.
to to please the guys and the gamers that deserve it, right? Because
And
you
what
know,
year was it?
excuse me.
What year was this? How long ago?
So yeah, we started doing that like 2012, 2013, like when esports was a thing in the international scene, but
Hmm.
it was nothing here in Macedonia and in the Balkans.
Hmm.
And yeah, but gamers really deserve to have these opportunities to compete. Maybe not for a lot of money, but at least compete for something. And that's why we always wanted to make this competition for our people, for our gamers, and for the young people to be at least a little bit motivated that they can achieve something in their life. And there is one guy from Macedonia that we took in our practicing rooms. That what his name is Martin. His nickname is Saxa. So he actually finished second place in international, the biggest one tournament in Dota, and he actually won about like $1 million. That was like 4 years ago. And yeah, there is actually something we were proud of, and we kept making these competitions for our guys, and yeah, and everything for hobby. So it was all passion.
Right. And so it started as passion, started like from necessity, and then grew like over time into something much, much larger. Right.
Yeah,
It's a huge,
exactly.
huge, huge industry. And um, I think it's going to be a big part of how this stuff
Yeah,
grows in Web3 too.
exactly. Recently, we here in Macedonia, we were promoted from from esport to sport to official sport. So in our country, we can already host competitions that are recognized from our country as an official sport
Hmm.
in in every competitive game.
Hmm. Okay. Cool.
About about BFG, I want to talk about that as well. And
Yeah. Sure.
uh, yeah, so in BFG, I am also co-founder and the CEO of Battle for Giostone.
Hmm.
And Battle for Giostone is a game that basically tried to take the best things from all the mobile genres and all the mobile games that are around, and
Hmm.
basically combine them and get the best from each one of them and put them together
Right.
in a way that people will own their assets, and in a way that there are like millions and millions of combinations to be played instead of just like 100 or 150 heroes.
Hmm. Hmm. Oh, and by the way, not to cut you off,
Mhm.
but if you are watching this on YouTube, we have for now the comments turned on. So as you're listening, if you have questions, throw them in there, and hopefully we'll have some time to take some of those. Um, but we'll get through some other stuff. Other stuff first. So we've obviously talked a lot about BFG and uh, why you decided to build it and what kind of value you think it's going to bring to Web3 and crypto. Um, but I'm just trying to think about the best way to phrase this question. Like, what did you, when you started looking at Web3 games, what did you feel was missing, that inspired you to build BFG and and include them in your title?
Well, to be honest, with this one, it's I started my Web3 gaming journey with Axie Infinity, and I started working with them together on something called community protection. We helped them with their Discord server to protect their server from scammers, from people trying to scam other people, and
Right.
shutting down some fake websites. And the more time I I spent there, the more engaged I got with the community, and I met all these people. I met a lot of new, a lot of new people. I also in meantime learned a lot about Web3 and about the whole thing in general. So I was immediately able to figure out that what is missing in these games is basically esports.
Mm, looks like Melee lost your signal there again for a second. If you can hear me. All right, let's give him a second. He'll probably just kind of hop back on again. Um, yeah, but in the meantime, guys, yeah, if you have any questions, anything you're wondering, if you're already a part of the BFG community, make sure to drop them in the chat. We'll try and get to some of these. Um, do, 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 do. And we got him back. Yeah,
Uh,
it just keeps showing that your signal is low. So maybe you could move to a better area, or I don't know,
yeah,
turn off your VPN or something. I
yeah, for
don't know.
sure. Yeah, okay. I hope it will be better. But can you
Yeah,
hear
you're
me
good.
well?
Yep.
Okay. So I was talking about what is missing in the Web2 industry, and I was
Unbelievable. We lost him again. This might just be. This might just me. Might end up being me just talking about the game by myself for a while, which I could probably do. Um, let's see if we can get him back on here. Yeah, we might just do that, Zach. Let's see. I am going to do this. Looks like we have Zach here. Zach is one of our GameFi gurus, analysts. You're welcome to join, Zach. I sent you a link if you'd like to. Um, and we Here we go.
I'm really sorry. I guess this time.
That's okay. That's
Yeah,
okay. It looks like you're in a different part of the house, so
yeah, yeah, yeah.
maybe that'll work better. And
All right.
we're gonna have Zach also join. And Zach's been studying the game. He's producing a series of guides on the game. So he's kind of he has a in-depth knowledge. Been working with the team, so I think he'll be a good person to sort of bring on and contribute to the conversation as well. But let's get back to what you were saying. Basically, before you completely froze, what you were saying was is the thing that you felt like that was missing was esports, and then you just sort of dropped off, and we haven't gotten much. So let's try
Ah,
and start from there.
right. So I was able to immediately recognize that esports is what missing in all. Like first, the 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 gameplay is also missing from like the interactive gameplay, because all the games that we have seen in Web3, for example, let's take Axie.
Mhm.
Axie is not a bad game, but the gameplay is not the is not interactive in a way that you need to click fast, you need to act fast, and we needed. this type of competitions, and we needed this type of games in this industry to be able to basically gather the Web 2 mass, to gather the Web 2 gamers inside the Web 3 community, and actually be able to start the mass adoption with the games, because it's all about mass adoption. The biggest Web 2 titles, like if you take Axie, it's not even 20% of where are the best Web 2 games. So we have a lot of work to get there, but eventually, with the right things and the competitiveness in these games, we will get there eventually.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. But you alluded to it earlier, but you've kind of had like a long career in organizing esports events, tournaments, things that are integral to the MOBA genre and culture, and they kind of like live and thrive off of these things. Um, so I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about like your past there, and why these events are so important to the genre, and just give us some insight into the complexities of getting these things organized, and very very large prize pools. And I just think it's a pretty unique thing in gaming, and I want to hear your perspective and history with it.
Yeah, so just like any other sport, we think that the we when I say we, I mean the people that fight and fight in the past for esports. They want to compare the esports with any other sport, and basically that's when you ask like why is esports a sport, it's basically because you have this game which is highly competitive. You have 10 players, right? In basketball, let's say you have 10 players as well, like it's 5 versus 5 game. You need to play good if individually, you need to play good as a team, and you
Yeah.
need to be able to do many things in the same time. You need to think. Every action, every click you make is basically a decision. So these games are all about momentum. They are based on momentum. So every action you make, it's a decision that will matter for later in the game. One mistake and you can lose the game. One good play and you can turn the game around. And basically, when you have something this much competitive, it basically attracts someone that want to watch that. And that's basically the same thing with the sports, because the professional players are making such moves. There is an audience that want to watch these moves, and actually they want to be like them one day, right? And it's the exact same thing here, because what professional players can do and what moves they can make in the games, that's why there is an audience and fans watching those games, and hoping that they can learn something from them either, or they just uh, want to bet on the games. They want to watch the tournaments, or they are cheering for some teams. So basically it triggers emotions, like the whole game, the whole energy, it triggers emotions for the viewers and for the players as well. And when you combine these things, you basically get a sport, because there are people that compete, there are two teams competing, and then there is an audience watching. So there is no difference from any other sport in the world. It's just it's not physical, but it's digital. So that's why we fight so hard to get esports on the map and actually make it sport, and it actually happened. And why is it so important? It's because it creates one sustainable ecosystem where where viewers are having fun while watching the games, and that matters a lot for sponsors that are coming into these
Hmm.
tournaments, sponsoring millions of dollars of prize pools, cars, and whatnot. Here is Mercedes, here is BMW, here is
Yeah.
like all these big huge companies are into esports already. So Adidas as well, all big companies have their own esports teams in some games. And why is that? Is because it's just because of the audience and the viewers watching. If it's not interesting to be watched, and if there is no audience watching, no one would be interested in doing that, because that would be wasting money. But since we have all these people watching, there is actually an interest to sponsor such events and organize such events. And about the organizing stuff, uh, we started like a small community in Macedonia first, like 2010. I was so young back then, but I started doing that like from 15 years old. It's like it was my passion, and I just started doing these tournaments even before Dota 2 came along. It was
Mm-hmm.
Dota 1 when I started doing some local tournaments first, and then some online tournaments, and all this, and then when Dota 2 came in the scene, it opened a whole new area for us and for esports in general. So when Dota 2 came, we started organizing these leagues in Macedonia first, and also organized a couple of Balkan tournaments that were played in a venue stadium, and were like all the teams that were playing in the tournament were actually there. And yeah, it's a long journey, if we go into details, but it's basically how I started the organizing thing, and how I got involved into the whole thing, and why I'm doing that is because I
Mm-hmm.
fight, and I always fought for esports to become
Yeah.
a sport, because it is a sport. It fills the all the criteriums, and it's basically a sport.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So it's like always been a passion thing for you, So it's like a personal kind of mission, which I think is gonna, which helps a lot, in creating something authentic. So we have Zach has joined us, a special impromptu guest, but we work really closely with Zach, also known as Trading Aloha on Twitter. And Zach is part of the Avalaunch team and focuses, well, on a lot of things, but generally related to gaming. And we have been putting out more content around games, games guides, strategy guides. He's working on a four-part series on BFG, so he's been working closely with the team on that stuff, and figured he'd be a great person to kind of have along for this conversation, because he thinks pretty deeply about this stuff. So how you doing, Zach?
Good, good. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad I could jump on. I saw it going off, and I was like, hey, why not? I'll jump on and say hi and see how everyone's doing. Yeah, I'm excited about it. I've been reading and writing and just kind of diving into all things BFG, and I love it. I'm excited. I'm interested to see the tokenomics kind of detailed out here. I'm working on the
Mm-hmm.
second video now with Melee, putting in some good guidance, and we're kind of finishing up what that's going to look like, and hopefully have that out here shortly over the next day or two.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the part that I think is very interesting, and I don't know if you've touched it already in the first kind of intro to this, is kind of how the automated forging fees might work on the tokenomics, because we've seen similar games try that. Snail Trail being one of those that kind of did the same thing,
Yeah.
and trying to keep the price at a stable level. And I'm just very interested to see how Melee and team puts that into effect here for
Mhm.
BFG.
Yeah, I mean, no, we haven't spoken about that today. So, Mila, if you want to talk about that, please feel free.
Yeah, sure. So forging is and will be a tricky thing in our game. So when uh, when I tried, and when I played, and when I observed the the other Web3 games and economies, I noticed that every time when the prices are starting to go up like crazy, like let's say this hero was $20 a week ago, and now because of the demand for the hero, it goes up to to 200, right? And at the moment, that hero can earn the same amount of tokens that he would be able to earn before, but the tokens the tokens are basically worth more, and that way they would get their investment back quicker. But on the long run, when the prices reach certain level, when other people cannot afford to buy new heroes anymore and the growth stops at some point, then the worst thing will happen and the prices will start going down a lot quicker than they were going up. And at some point they will touch the all-time low again, and basically it crushes the whole economy and it makes the community sad, and not just sad but disappointed, because they got into these game economies to be able to as investors, right, not as gamers. And they got actually just because some friend or some YouTube video told them that they will be able to earn $100 per day or something like that. So what my initial idea with the automated forging fees is basically that by keeping the prices and the entry point low enough for everyone to be able to join, even when the demand is high, is going to basically not increase the prices for someone that wants to just get in the economy. Because when you join in BFG you can actually play for free if you want, but when at some point you decide to go from web 3 from web 2 to web 3 and you want to be part of the ecosystem, you need to either forge a hero or buy a hero in the marketplace. So with the automated forging fees, then we will make sure that the prices in the market will not go up so much, not just not down, but not go up, because we believe that if we keep the prices normal, like for normal heroes, the price is normal, and like $30 for hero, let's say, I'm just not telling something that will be actually in the game, but just an example. If we want the heroes to be $30 and everyone can buy them, right? Then we adjust the forging fees based on the for marketplace price. And let's say if the marketplace price reach like $70 or 80 and we want to keep it 30, then we just lower the forging fee, and that way the market, no one would buy from the marketplace, but the better it would be better for the players to just forge on their own. So that way the prices cannot go so high and unbelievably high. That's our like the first idea why we want to add this automated reproduction or forging fee adjustment.
Yeah, no,
Zach,
I like it.
what do you think?
It sounds great. I'm interested to see kind of how it works and how you kind of adjust on the fly. I know initially, like when it launches, you have to figure out, what's the best time to adjust it. Is it daily, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever works best, depending on demand. But I think it makes sense. It's definitely a fresh change from kind of the way we've seen things over the last 8 to 9 months or so, with a game that's actually fun to play. So I'm excited for the whole the change in the space, and you guys leading the way as far as like a first MOBA in the space is great.
Thank you. And another thing that this forging fee adjustment would solve is basically the oversupply and undersupply of GST, which is the in-game credits that will be used in our ecosystem as well. Because we're basically building some artificial AI tool that will predict the forging in the next week based on some data from before. So let's say we take the data from the last month and we want to predict how many forgings there will be in the next month. Then we take in consideration the marketplace prices as well for those abilities and those heroes that people want to forge, and analyzing all this data. And after that, this AI will actually say, okay, this month we will need like 2000 gst to be to for forging, right, based on all these data that he will observe and learn in the past months. And this way we can actually protect the GST from oversupply and undersupply, because oversupply could make the prices go crazy low and unattractive for the players and for the gamers, and undersupply can actually make the prices go crazy and in some way give the gamers false hope that they can earn a lot of money just by clicking, or just by playing a couple of matches per day. And we don't want to do that, because we believe that's the first thing why many economies has gone wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you are sort of really interested in this part of the game, sort of the game economy, and how all of these things are balanced, we're going to be releasing a video dedicated specifically to this and breaking it apart, and that's something that Zach is working on. We're also going to be doing at some point um, a uh, uh, a live stream like this, and covering something similar. Really, just going through the nitty gritty specifics of the design, what we're trying to achieve with it, and how it solves some of the issues that have presented themselves so far. So I'm pretty excited that like as a game, it can sort of withstand this level of scrutiny, and there's actually enough thinking and foresight that to warrant kind of this much like coverage. So I think it's a good sign for Battle for Geostone. Um, but in thinking about like the MOBA genre in general, and kind of where we're at, and like where we think this is going. Um, I would imagine that you anticipate that at some point in the future, BFG and games like it, as Web3 MOBA titles, will stand as equal, right, to these other like incumbent larger titles like League of Legends, Dota, BFG, right? Like these will just all like live together, and Web3 games have a shot at kind of occupying that level of legitimacy in gaming.
Yeah, right. So in my opinion, and of course I'm working towards standing side by side with the most popular game titles, and I see it possible. But first we must ensure to make I think that will be separated on like milestones or like a roadmap.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
First thing that needs to happen to be able to stand side by side with any Web2 game, not just mobile in general, is to make the mass adoption. And the mass adoption will happen only when we find the perfect bridge from the Web2 people for Web3. So we must build the game with the idea that can everyone should be able to download this game basically, or launch, and not even feel that there is some difference
Right.
with Web 2. So if someone goes downloads our game and say, "Oh, this is blockchain or this is Web 2 or NFT," then that's not the good approach. But if someone comes in our game, plays couple of matches, just registers an account and not even notice that he is in some Web3 game, then that's the first milestone that we'll achieve with Battle for Geostone towards going into standing side by side with other big titles. Then the second thing is the actual quality of the gameplay, the actual smoothness, and the actual work that need to be done to the game to be able to stand with these titles. So titles like Dota or League of Legends have their own game engines, for example, right?
Hmm.
And to have your own game engine is so like really, really expensive, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of resources and a lot of work. And we're of course aiming towards it. We want ideally to have our own engine in future and make everything uh, hmm, to be able like to compete with those titles basically, because in there are many things which we do better and many advantages as a web3 game that we have over these other titles that they don't have. Like for example, there are marketplaces. Like I personally have spent over tens of thousands of dollars in Dota, and everything I bought and everything I have is not tradable on the first place. And even if it is, you can trade it with other players, which is in-game skins, but you cannot cash out at any point. So you have these imaginary money in the marketplace, and you can use them to buy other skins, but you can never cash out something, or you can buy like some other games but never get real money. So the first real big improvement and big advantage over those games are that people that will have these skins will be actually able to get real money with selling them if someone else is interested to buy them. And the second thing, which is really big thing, is inflation. These skins from the other titles are all in a centralized database, and they can reproduce as many of them as they want. You know, they can reproduce millions of these skins and make the price from $1,000 go to $10 in a few seconds, because they will produce and sell that for cheaper. And that's a really big advantage that the Web3 games will have, because if you limit these skins to 1,000, it can never be produced again. And if it's limited to 1,000, that will be on the blockchain. People will know that these in-game skins will be 1,000. They will be never produced again, and I can have this in my wallet. Nobody can take this out of me. And whatever happens, I have this NFT in my wallet that can be used in this game and eventually maybe in something else later on. So this is what the biggest two advantages that Web3 games have over the Web2 titles, and we need to use this really smart and in the right way to show the people that this is the good thing, right? Because everyone is scared of the new thing, but we have to prove and we have to teach everyone that this is the right thing, that they own what they see, they can sell that in the marketplace for real money actually, for and just everything in general. The ownership of those assets is really giving advantages over the web too. But what's missing is the steps it takes to actually make something, right? Because if you want to join a new Web3 game right now, you need to create MetaMask, you need to connect your wallet, you need to go buy some tokens first, then go on Trader Joe, let's say, swap them to the currency of the game, then use
Hmm.
that on the marketplace, buy the NFT, sign the transaction, uh, make sure you write your private case, your seat somewhere, not lose it. And that's also complicated that someone that have no idea of Web3, even if the game is really good, he will be scared to do it just because, I may lose this, I may do this. They're just not comfortable doing it. So that's why I think we need to solve that first before the mass adoption starts really.
Yeah.
And when I mean mass adoption, it basically means that, like, let's say 30% of what Dota got, for example.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean the onboarding, the friction between Web3 and your average user player, whatever the case is it's interesting because this is a problem that is present across any type of project, right? Whether it's a game or a DeFi application, and everyone recognizes this as a huge like blocker to adoption. And it's been this kind of like open design challenge and problem for a long time now. But what I think is kind of interesting about gaming is it somehow feels more vital, or possibly there's just more people at one time working on this problem. So if you were to achieve this, or some other game were to achieve this, and we're able to kind of abstract the really confusing and scary parts of this, which they are, to your average individual. It's not sort of in crypto. It will be a huge benefit, not just to gaming, but like to the whole space, to crypto in general. And when it comes to asset ownership, and the way this has been traditionally done in games. If you go and like you look at the numbers and the data, it's like the amount of money that is spent inside of these games is absolutely like staggering. I was talking to a mobile game developer a couple of weeks ago, and they had they had built some very popular games, and they were telling me that there were a number of players that over the course of their time in this mobile game had spent over $1 million inside of this mobile game, just on things that they didn't own, they couldn't transfer. They were just sort of things that they had in the game. So the idea of ownership, that like the genie is kind of like out of the bottle already, right? It's too compelling to kind of go backwards on. And so what it how games end up utilizing this, and how they end up kind of giving power and value back to the players, sort of yet to be seen. And we're going to see lots of different versions of it. But it's just kind of crazy to think about sort of the status quo, and where we're headed with this stuff. And I think it's one of the more obvious, undeniable benefits of blockchain application in Web3. You could say a lot of things about this stuff, but the ownership of those assets, and the ability to do other things with them, give them away, trade them, extract the value from them, as opposed to them just sort of being locked in this closed system. I mean, there's just nothing. There's nothing to be said about that. Like, you can't deny that that's a huge, 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 huge value to everyone involved.
Right. And another big thing that I see is that it's on the blockchain, right? So let's say if these games shut down eventually one day, someone else is able to recreate something similar or same, that will basically continue with the same assets that people own, right? That's something that is really, really, really interesting. And that was something that I personally considered when I started working on Battle for Giostone. One thing that we considered was actually making the whole game open source,
Yeah,
and that way, if let's say you're that I think that's a long topic, but let's say you don't like the game, you think the game is going in the wrong direction,
yeah,
and okay, you got some developers, you got some skills, you can basically take out the source code and then create your own game, right? And then people would be able to use the same assets and the same characters in your game, and if your game is better, they would just play your version better.
hmm
So
hmm
that was something really interesting and cool that we were thinking about. And even if there's not open source code, right, they could still use the same NFTs and the same wallets to create something that will give them utility. So it's not you're not tied to something with them, and you
yeah.
have the freedom to do whatever you want.
Right. Well, the first time that happens is going to be really, really interesting, and definitely like historical, because people talk about the value of owning your asset is like you have it and you have control over it. And the examples that people will use in sort of kind of explaining why this is of benefit are these other games and titles where they just the developer gives up on the game, game's over, shuts down, and these things are worthless. The point like never really like resonated too deeply with me, because with a Web3 game, yeah, you own the asset, but if a team just sort of says, "Hey, we're closing down the game, we're giving up." Yeah, you have the asset, but it's likely going to lose its value because the game is no longer in existence. So you're not really better off necessarily for having owned it. But what you're talking about is really interesting. Is game developers kind of building for uh, open source interoperability, or they didn't, and some other game developer picks up these assets and builds another game around it. Like these things are possible, right? We haven't seen anything like that yet, but they're possible. And when that finally does happen, in some way, shape, or form, that's going to be a really interesting thing to kind of watch and unfold, and definitely be a historical moment for games and just like crypto in general. I think so. It's an interesting point, but yeah, there's definitely like more to the conversation that I think people tend to let on. It would require a lot. Um, but in talking about these assets and you know uh, when you are uh, working on BFG, or when you started working on BFG, how did you go about starting to design these assets, these characters, this story, to make sure that it was not just compelling, but also of a high enough quality, right, that could again compete with these other titles? Tell us a little bit about uh, who on your team and how your team works through creating a really, really cool lore and story, and making sure that these assets are actually, desirable and fun and cool to own.
Yeah, right. So the first unique thing that we came up with was that every hero would look differently. And how are going to we achieve this is basically making every ability a body like an equipment that can be used for any of the hero classes. And that's actually how the idea of millions of hero combinations was actually created.
Mm-hmm.
So in all these other games, you're limited on like 100 heroes. They look cool. They have all this stuff on them, but you're limited. You can play only 100 heroes. It's not getting boring ever, but the possibilities with millions of heroes are endless, basically, because you could build all these different strategies, and you could customize how your hero you want to look, because uh, and that's the first unique thing, and that's what inspired our designers to work on the characters and on the base models, was to make sure that everything will look good on every hero. And that was the most challenging part, and the first problem that we ever faced once we started building the game. We started small. We started with like one designer only, a guy that was just creating some drawings, creating some characters, creating some heroes. And then we started going bigger and bigger by the time. And right now we have like over 40 people working on the game. So it's a mix and combination of designers, programmers, QA, server guys, and all that stuff. But in general, the first problem, it was really interesting. The first problem that we faced was, okay, how are we going to make all these body parts and all this equipment be able to be equipped on all the characters.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were thinking like we could have one hero looks like a spider, and another one looks like a human, third one looking like an the monster. But that was basically impossible with our game, because we had to make all the characters look kind of similar. So not similar, but for example, all the characters have hands and legs, so we could equip those body parts there. So the way, so we were some kind of limited on the beginning with that. And then we built the body parts unique and really interesting. So when you are customizing a hero, when you're building a hero, your hero can look really interesting and good at the end. And all these people were trying to catch the to make and create the best customizable items. So when you have your final heroes, they don't look kind of same, and they look unique and interesting. So
Mm-hmm.
we have like a meme contest last week, and every meme that we got was about the fat hero called Gogmagog, because the way he swaps in the game, it was really interesting to everybody. And all these memes for him. And that's how we want, by making the heroes unique in some things and creating a story behind them.
Mm-hmm.
And the war is how we want to make all the heroes interesting to play, and then after all customizable based on the abilities and the body parts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you guys are already very far along in the actual game development. Like you're currently doing like closed beta tournaments, basically, right?
It's not beta, it's not even alpha, so we call that pre-alpha. So it's
Pre-alpha.
basically, yeah, creating these tournaments to gather feedback from actual players that play the game, to be able to balance the game more and more and more, because you need a lot of people to test and play the game to be able to balance this thing. And when we have the alpha version, we want it to be balanced without some game breaking
Yeah.
bugs or something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
these
Mm-hmm.
tournaments are actually engaging people to play and test our game, and
Right.
they are also inviting their friends, and then everyone testing and giving us their feedback. We really appreciate that, and we really love to see more and more participants to give us feedback on how to balance this thing, because the balancing is the most is the most like, I don't know the right word, but it's really hard to make a good balance in such game, especially when you have these millions of combinations. So
Yeah.
you have to be sure that there is no one particular ability that is better than everything else. You must have another ability better than this one, and then something else that could counter all three of them. So it's really kind of tricky, but yeah, we're getting there with the help of Tiban, and he's actually the genius behind all that.
Uh huh. Uh huh. Yeah. See, I think that's so cool. Like, you can actually, well, anyone that's interested in what you guys are doing, you can go watch people playing it and playing in the tournaments, but also engaging the community early and involving them in the process of the game balancing, to one, engage them, but also make the game better. And it's again one of these things that's like just it's not the way it's ever been done. It's not really possible, until now. And so I love to see when projects, any kind of project really, through testnet or this pre-alpha tournament stuff, leverages the community, the collective wisdom to test and grow and engage. It's like such an important part of crypto and such a missed opportunity, I think, most of the time, at least when people don't do it. Um, but it also gives you it gives you an opportunity to kind of put it out there and show people, hey, this thing is real, and we're working on it, and we're not just talking. It doesn't just sound good. It all sounds really good, right? But you can go and you can watch and you can be a part of it now. And I think it's a really important thing to do, and capture the community and trust, right? Like well before you launch the game and actually um, have people consider participating, financially. I just think it's such a cool model that offers so much more above and beyond the way things have always been done. So yeah, definitely would encourage anyone that's interested to check that out. I mean, we've been sharing a little bit about it when it's going on, but if you really want to stay on the pulse, definitely join up with the BFG community and follow their Twitter and kind of test it out, test it out yourself. And that's like one of my favorite things about what you guys are doing right now. I just think it's the coolest thing. And one of the kind of final questions I have, because we're kind of coming up on the hour here, and I again want to just respect everyone's time. Well, two questions. And I like asking this question because when we talk to games, we end up focusing on like how they're improving and the problems they're seeing. And it sort of suggests that like in some way that like everything else is shit and there's nothing else good out there. So I always like to ask, like, are there any crypto games that you are playing that you do like and enjoy, um, and play on any kind of regular basis?
Uh, right now, I play a couple of Axie games sometimes, but everything else, I don't really play anything.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, it's either because I don't find it interesting, or second, the entry points are crazy high. So
Yeah.
I don't want to be part of the sinking ship, because I've tried a couple of times, not because I wanted to earn something, but because I wanted to try the games, and all the games I tried, basically, their entry point was so high, and I actually end up spending like thousands of dollars for something to be able to play the game, and after a week, that goes down to like 200, and you're just losing your motivation, and yeah, I still play a couple of games Axie, not on a daily basis, but let's say 2 3 matches per week I play
Yeah.
just to
That's
remember. And
something. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and the game is interesting. They add some new features, and I have this guild, some guys that are competing there, and I just want to keep up and know what's going on, and yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. I mean, the entry point thing is, yeah, that's a problem. And the last question I have. So, looking at like your past career, Theban's past career, being internationally ranked champions and very, very involved, obviously means that you guys kind of have this broad network of like Web2 players and coaches and people, and do you guys expect this to like offer some kind of competitive advantage for the game? Like, are you trying to leverage this network to say, hey, like like we've been over here, like we understand where like the points of friction and kind of maybe mistrust are, but we've seen the light, and this is what we're building over here. Come check it out because like we're you. Are you guys kind of trying to leverage any of that to help with the adoption and the promotion of the game?
Yeah, sure. One of the things that let's start over. The guys that we know, like that I know like a lot of people that actually tried to play competitively, let's say Dota or League of Legends or CS:GO,
Yeah.
but they haven't succeeded for a couple of reasons. First, because they need to work something. You cannot just sit and play all day. You need to live. You need to pay your rent. You need to pay expenses, and
Right.
they just cannot focus to play professionally. And I know also other type of guys that, let's say, their parents supported them, or they had some money. They tried to play professionally, but it's so hard because it requires you to be in not even top 1%, but top 0.1% of the players to be
Mm-hmm.
able to make a living out of it. And
Mm-hmm.
that's so hard to achieve because the competition gets bigger and bigger. Because 10 years ago, out of 30 people in my class, 25 were playing outside sports, basketball, football, and we were five playing computer games. But now it's really different. If you take 30 people, like 25 would play the games and five people would play outside, and that's the difference. Because and the competition just become uh, more and more, and now it's so hard to get into the top 0.1%, let's say. And one thing we're doing differently is actually we want to make these tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 competitive leagues that will actually extend this percentage somewhere to maybe like 10 or 15% of the players would be actually called themselves like professional players compete in leagues by making this structure and these leagues far more organized than the current system and allowing more larger percentage to be part of the ecosystem. One, because
Mm-hmm.
we can give more back to our community, and second, because we understand that there are many good talented people that cannot reach the top 0.1%,
Right.
not just because they are not good, but because they cannot sustain, they cannot earn something in order to keep grinding and keep playing. So that is why I would be comfortable telling to all these friends, hey, come try BFG. It's not like you need to be the top 0.1, but you need to be like top 15% to be able to actually make a living out of it. Not millions, but just sustain yourself until you're grinding to be more advanced leagues and more
Mm-hmm.
professional leagues. And
Mm-hmm.
that's, I think, my personal
Yeah.
in- invitation letter for my friends and everyone I know that's competitive.
Uh-huh. Yeah, well, I mean, that sounds like great and smart and actually really useful on a lot of levels and inclusive, which is important. Um, well, I've asked everything that I think I was planning on asking, but since we have the pleasure of having Zach here, I'm wondering, before we wrap it up here, Zach, is there anything else that you want to kind of get into? I'm happy to spend a few more minutes if there's something you have a burning question.
Yeah, I don't think I have any burning questions that need to be addressed now. I'm still kind of putting together my final thoughts for the tokenomics video, and I think a lot of it's what you captured here, and I appreciate kind of going in depth on the algorithmic tokenomic issue, because that was where I started to get a little confused in how you're going to handle that. But I think I've got it. And I think that you've touched on most of the ways you can earn in the game, which I think is great to see, that you don't just have to play, you don't just have to invest. You can, and then the esports route is fantastic. And that's the thing that I'm really interested in, is how do you kind of bridge that gap from where we've seen the traditional GameFi space, and then taking it to that next level, which I think you're doing a great job, and you've got the team to support you to do that. Um, but on a questions aspect, I don't have any additional ones right now. I'm sure I'll come up with some more here as we kind of roll through. And I know we've been going for about an hour, so I will cede the floor for
Okay.
now.
No worries. Well, we are going to have you back on at some point in the next week or two. So we'll get into some more stuff then. But thank you both. Thanks, Mile. Thanks, Zach, for making the time. As always, much appreciated. On behalf of the Avalaunch community, I say thank you for making the time and coming on and talking about what y'all are building, so everyone can feel in the know and informed and have a strong sense of kind of what they're getting themselves involved with. I think that's important. So we will certainly be doing more of this again soon. So if you enjoyed it, which I hope you did, got more coming your way. Watch out for the 4-part series we have coming out on YouTube. Compliments of Zach here, and yeah, we'll see y'all soon. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much, Mark. See you guys.
All right,
Bye.
Joe. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
See you later.